What happens when live television's sharpest tongue goes head-to-head with country music's most unshakable queen? On The View, Joy Behar expected an easy chat, a few laughs, a little banter, another headline to stir the crowd. But when Reba McEntire took that seat, the air shifted. One smirk turned into a spark, one question became a challenge, and in seconds, America watched polite conversation erupt into a full-blown showdown. And by the end, only one woman walked away with her dignity. The lights inside the View studio burned bright, the kind that made every expression impossible to hide. Whoopi Goldberg sat in the center, steady as ever, ready to play referee if things got heated. To her left was Sunny Hostin, calm and polished. On the far end, Alyssa Farah Griffin smiled politely, keeping her notes close. And right beside Whoopi, front and center, was Joy Behar, the sharp-tongued veteran who'd built a career on cutting through pleasantries. Then came the applause. The stage door opened, and Reba McEntire stepped out. Country music royalty in heels and confidence. The red hair shimmered under the lights. Her black blazer gleamed against the backdrop of the show's signature blue set. She smiled warmly as the audience cheered, but behind that grace was someone who'd seen it all. The small stages, the heartbreaks, the decades of fighting to be taken seriously in a business that never played fair. Joy clapped, but her grin didn't quite reach her eyes. "Ladies and gentlemen," Whoopi announced, "please welcome the one and only, Reba McEntire." Reba took her seat, crossing one leg over the other. "Thanks for having me, y'all," she said, voice smooth and easy. The room relaxed. For a moment, it felt like this would be another charming celebrity interview. But Joy Behar was already leaning forward. She had that look, half smile, half challenge. The kind of look that said she was about to test just how far she could push her guest. "So Reba," Joy began, her tone casual but loaded, "you've been in this business for decades. You've seen it all. What do you make of these new TikTok singers out there pretending to be artists?" The word pretending hit like a slap. Even Whoopi raised an eyebrow. Alyssa looked down at her notes. Sunny shifted in her chair. They'd all heard that tone before. Joy wasn't asking a question, she was laying bait. Reba's smile didn't fade, but her eyes sharpened. "Pretending?" she echoed softly, the drawl in her voice stretching the word until it sounded dangerous. "I think they're creating, Joy." Just in a new way, Joy laughed, short and clipped, the kind of laugh people use when they don't respect the answer. "Oh, come on. Anyone with a phone can call themselves a musician these days," she said, waving a hand. Reba didn't move. "Anyone with a phone can share their voice," she replied evenly. "That doesn't make them less of an artist." The air in the studio shifted. What had started as polite conversation now felt like the first spark of a storm. Joy's smirk grew tighter. Reba's expression stayed still, controlled, calm, but with a flicker of heat behind her eyes. Whoopi's head turned slightly, reading the tension like a barometer before a hurricane. Sunny glanced toward the producers. Alyssa bit her lip, knowing what was coming. Joy leaned back, pretending to stay light. "Well," she said, "I guess we'll see how long this new talent lasts before it fades away like every other social media trend." Reba smiled again, but this time there was steel in it. "Maybe," she said quietly, "or maybe they'll outlast the people who underestimate them." The words landed like a challenge. For a split second, Joy blinked, caught off guard. Then that half-smile returned, sharper now, like a blade polished before a duel. The air inside the View studio now felt electric. Can see it in the way Whoopi's hands tightened on her cue cards, in the way Sunny stopped shifting in her chair, and in the way Joy Behar's smile curved just a little too sharply. Joy leaned back in her chair, lips curling into that smirk that always came right before she attacked. "Back in your day," she said, voice soaked in sarcasm, "you needed talent, not filters and ring lights." A few nervous laughs broke from the audience, the kind that vanish as fast as they appear. Reba's head tilted. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes said everything. "There it is." She smiled, slow, sharp. "Funny," Reba said softly, "coming from someone who's made a career talking over people who actually have talent." The crowd let out a low, collective gasp. Whoopi froze. Sunny's eyebrows shot up. Alyssa looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. Joy blinked, caught off guard, but forced a laugh. Oh, honey, I don't need a guitar to recognize a gimmick when I see one. Reba leaned in just slightly, her southern charm slipping into something cooler, harder. And I don't need a talk show to recognize insecurity when I hear it. Joy's laugh died mid-breath. The smile stayed, but her eyes hardened. Careful, Reba. You sound a little touchy. Maybe those TikTok kids hit a nerve. Reba chuckled. Low, unbothered, dangerous. Sweetheart, the only thing that hits my nerves is hypocrisy. You sit here preaching about talent when the only instrument you've mastered is a microphone. Joy's lips parted. Excuse me. You heard me, Reba said, her voice steady as a blade. I've sung in dive bars, slept in cars, and clawed my way up one song at a time. You've spent 20 years throwing shade at people you'll never understand. So maybe, just maybe, you're not the authority on real work, the audience murmured, caught between shock and thrill. This wasn't a segment anymore. It was a reckoning. Joy tried to laugh again, but her voice cracked under the pressure. Well, at least I didn't need auto-tune to make a living. Reba smiled, slow and dangerous. Oh, bless your heart, she said. That's adorable. Still swinging, even when you're out of your league. Joy's nostrils flared. Out of my league? Please, I've been holding my own against politicians and celebrities for decades. Yeah, Reba said, her tone turning icy. And somehow none of them ever taught you the difference between confidence and cruelty. The words hit harder than any shout could. Joy's face stiffened. For the first time, she didn't have a comeback ready. Reba didn't blink. She sat there, calm, composed, lethal. You call it honesty, she added quietly. I call it cheap applause. The studio was dead silent. Even the producers had stopped whispering in headsets. Joy waved her hand like she was brushing off a bad song on the radio. Please, she said, laughing under her breath. Lip-syncing kids aren't artists. They're noise. The words hit hard, sharper than she realized. The audience gave a nervous chuckle, unsure if they should laugh or look away. Reba's smile vanished completely. She leaned forward just an inch, her voice dropping low enough to make everyone on set lean in. Careful, Joy, she said slowly. Mocking art says more about you than it does about them. Joy's eyebrow arched, that trademark smirk crawling back across her face. Then maybe, she said, I'm just the only one honest enough to say it. That was it, the line that cracked the calm wide open. Reba's chair creaked as she straightened, her eyes locking on Joy like a storm zeroing in on landfall. Honest, she said, her tone razor sharp. There's a difference between honest and hateful. You might want to learn it before you start confusing the two. Joy tilted her head, still trying to sound amused, but her voice was thinner now. Oh, come on, Reba. You're not seriously defending kids who sing into their phones and call it art, are you? Reba didn't look away. I'm defending people who actually try. She leaned closer, her accent deepening, steady and dangerous. You can mock a microphone all you want, Joy, but at least they're brave enough to pick one up. The words landed like a slap, not shouted, not angry, but surgical. Joy tried to laugh it off. Oh, you've got a feisty side, huh? Reba's lips curved just slightly. Darling, this is the calm side. That's when the air shifted. You could feel it in the silence that followed. The kind of silence before thunder breaks, before the crowd gasps, before someone says something they can't take back. Joy glanced toward the camera, searching for control, but Reba never moved. Her eyes stayed fixed, steady, unflinching. The tension was now thick enough to choke on. The smiles were gone. The small talk had burned away. It wasn't a TV segment anymore. It was a trial by fire, and Reba McEntire had just been sworn in as her own defense. Joy crossed her arms, chin high, refusing to back down. You want to know what I think, Reba? These kids don't pay their dues. They post a few videos, get 1 million likes, and suddenly they think they're legends. Reba's voice dropped, slow and steady, like thunder rolling in from the distance. You want to talk about paying dues, Joy? Her tone was soft, but it wasn't gentle. She leaned forward, eyes locked on Joy. When I was 16, I sang in bars where drunks threw beer bottles instead of roses. I made $20 a night on a good night. I slept in cars between gigs, sang until I couldn't speak, and kept going because quitting wasn't an option. Joy shifted, the defiance starting to crack. Reba didn't stop. I buried 8 of my bandmates after a plane crash, she said quietly, then walked back on stage 3 months later because people who'd bought tickets still deserved a show. Every syllable hit like a hammer, slow, deliberate, undeniable. Reba's eyes didn't waver. So don't you dare lecture me about what it takes to earn your place. The room went dead still. Even the air seemed to stop moving. Joy swallowed hard, the sound almost audible in the silence. For the first time since the interview began, she didn't have a comeback. Then almost desperately, she tried to laugh it off. I'm not attacking you, Reba, she said, forcing the words out. I'm attacking laziness. Reba's expression didn't change, but her tone did. The velvet was gone. Now it was steel. Then stop mistaking youth for laziness. Joy smirked, but it didn't reach her eyes. Oh, come on. You really think these kids are working as hard as you did? Reba tilted her head. No, she said, pausing just long enough for the sting to land. Harder. They don't have a label, a team, or a talk show defending them. They build everything from scratch, while people like you tear them down for sport. Joy's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Reba leaned back, voice calm again. Too calm. You said you were attacking laziness, but what you're doing, Joy, it sounds a lot like jealousy. Joy froze. Her jaw tightened, her knuckles whitening against the table. Reba didn't blink. So tell me, she said softly, who exactly is not paying their dues now? Joy's pride was bleeding, but instead of retreating, she went for the kill. She leaned in, voice sharp and dripping with sarcasm. Maybe you just can't handle criticism. The words landed like a grenade. Even Whoopi's pen stopped mid-note. Reba froze for half a heartbeat, then stood. Slow, deliberate, her movements calm, but radiating fury. The audience didn't breathe. She was still poised, but her voice came out colder than ice. Criticism, she said, almost whispering. Honey, I've been criticized by people who knew what they were talking about. Joy blinked, thrown off by the softness of her tone, the kind of quiet that made you brace for the hit. Reba's voice rose just slightly. You? You just criticize because it fills airtime. The line sliced through the air like a blade. Joy's smirk faltered, but she pushed back anyway. Oh, don't flatter yourself. I've dealt with tougher guests, Reba tilted her head, eyes narrowing. Then maybe it's time you met one who fights back. A ripple of gasps swept through the audience. Whoopi's hand hovered near her mic, ready to cut to commercial, but even she couldn't look away. Reba stepped closer to the table, her heels clicking against the stage, a sound louder than anything else in the room. I've handled critics my whole career. Real ones. The kind who love music, understand art, and care enough to want it to be better. She paused, locking eyes with Joy. You just love the sound of your own judgment. Joy tried to smirk again, but it came out crooked, weak. Oh, that's cute. Are we done with the drama now? Reba's lips curled into something between a smile and a warning. Not even close. The air went dead still. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate, the red recording lights blinking like nervous eyes. For a long moment, no one moved. Not Whoopi, not Sunny, not Alyssa. Just Reba, standing tall, breathing calm through the kind of fury that only comes from years of being underestimated. Joy sat back slowly, realizing too late she'd gone too far. The smirk on her face wasn't confidence anymore. It was defense. Reba took one slow step forward. The cameras followed her like she was gravity itself. Her voice was low, steady, the kind of calm that comes right before everything breaks loose. You think you fought real battles, Joy? Joy blinked, caught off guard. Her smirk vanished for the first time all morning. Reba didn't wait for a reply. You sit here every day talking about people's lives like they're punchlines. But let me tell you what real battles look like. Her tone deepened. Not angry, just painfully real. I fought the battle of being told I wasn't pretty enough for country music. I fought the battle of being told I was too country for pop and too pop for country. I fought the battle of losing 8 members of my band in a plane crash and still getting back on that stage because people counted on me. Every word landed harder than the last. Joy's eyes darted away, her shoulders stiff. Reba kept going. I fought the battle of starting over after divorce, the battle of raising a child alone while the industry said my time was up. And after all that, she leaned forward, her voice sharp as glass. The biggest battle was against people like you. The audience gasped softly. Even Whoopi, the veteran of live chaos, didn't move. Joy finally looked back at her, face tense, trying to mask the hit. Oh, come on, she muttered, her voice thin. It's just conversation. Reba's eyes didn't soften. No, Joy. It's cruelty dressed up for daytime TV. You call it comedy. I call it cheap shots at people who still believe in something. Joy blinked hard, stung. I joke for a living, Reba. Don't take everything so serious. Reba stepped closer, her southern drawl now cutting like thunder. You hide behind that word, joke, every time you hurt someone. But let's be honest, you don't joke to make people laugh anymore. You joke to make yourself feel bigger. Joy opened her mouth but said nothing. Reba's voice softened, but somehow that made it even more brutal. I've stood in front of 50,000 people who came to listen. You sit behind a table and tear them down. There's a difference between building something and breaking it. The audience went silent. No gasps, no whispers, just the heavy, frozen kind of quiet that happens when the truth finally lands. Joy's hands trembled slightly on the desk. Her jaw clenched. But the damage was done. Reba straightened, exhaled once, and said calmly, You talk about real battles, Joy. Try fighting one that doesn't end when the cameras stop rolling. That was the moment everyone knew. The storm had touched down. The tension finally snapped. Joy pushed back her chair and stood, her face flushed, her pride burning through the cracks in her voice. Don't act like you're some saint, Reba. Some of us fight real wars off camera. Reba didn't move. Her calm was terrifying now, the kind that comes from knowing you've already won. She took one measured step closer, her heels echoing through the silence. And some of us, she said slowly, fight our wars on stage in front of millions without hiding behind cue cards. The line hit like a slap, hard, precise, undeniable. Joy blinked fast, her breath catching. At least I don't have to sing about my problems to get people to listen, she snapped, voice trembling under the weight of her own words. Reba's head tilted, her voice dipping into a dangerous calm. No, you just talk over people until they stop trying to speak. Joy's jaw clenched. You think you're the only one who's worked hard? I've earned every chair, every headline. Reba cut her off instantly. You've earned noise, Joy. Not respect. There's a difference. The silence that followed felt alive. Even the air between them seemed to hum. Joy blinked, refusing to look away, but her hands were trembling now. One gripping the edge of the table, the other pressed flat against her cue cards like they might protect her. Whoopi mouthed silently from across the table. Let it go. Sunny stared at her coffee cup. Alyssa glanced toward the control booth, silently begging for someone to cut to break. But the producers didn't dare. Reba didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. Her tone carried more power than shouting ever could. You call it truth-telling, she said quietly, but all I see is someone mistaking cruelty for courage. Joy's mouth opened to fire back, but no words came. For the first time on her own show, Joy Behar looked small, and Reba, calm, relentless, unflinching, stood like a storm that had finally touched down and left nothing standing in its path. Reba's patience finally snapped. She straightened her shoulders, her hand rising to point directly at Joy. Calm, precise, unshakable. Don't you ever call me princess again, she said, voice sharp enough to cut glass. I've earned my crown the hard way. Joy blinked fast, caught completely off guard. Her voice wavered. It was just a joke. Reba took a step closer, her tone dropping low enough to shake the room. Then learn the difference between a joke and disrespect. The audience went silent. Joy's lips parted, but no sound came out. Reba didn't stop. She leaned in slightly, her eyes locked on Joy's like a teacher addressing a student who'd finally crossed the line. You sit here judging artists you'll never understand, Joy. You think holding a microphone gives you power? It doesn't. It gives you responsibility. Joy froze. Her eyes darted toward the cameras as if searching for an escape. But Reba wasn't finished. Every word you say, she continued, can lift someone up or tear them down. You chose the latter. And that's not bravery, honey. That's cowardice with a studio audience. Joy's face went pale. Her cue cards trembled in her hand, the paper shaking under the weight of silence. Reba's voice softened. Not kind, but final. Respect doesn't come from a spotlight, Joy. It comes from how you treat people once you're in it. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. The power in her tone did all the work. For the first time all morning, Joy Behar, the host known for dominating every conversation, had nothing left to say. And Reba, standing tall beneath the studio lights, looked every bit the queen she'd just declared herself to be. For the first time, Joy's armor cracked. Her tone, once sharp and fearless, came out small, uncertain. Maybe I crossed a line, she said quietly, her voice trembling just enough for the microphones to catch it. Reba didn't soften, not even a flicker. She stood still, steady as a wall of truth. You didn't cross it, she said evenly. You bulldozed it. The audience froze. The sentence landed like a hammer. Clean, final, undeniable. Joy blinked hard, trying to hold on to her composure, but her voice betrayed her. Look, I was just... Reba cut in before she could finish. No, you were just mocking people who work for what they love. You were just tearing down kids who still believe in something. You call it honesty, but all I see is bitterness dressed up as wisdom. Joy's mouth opened, then closed again. Her hands clenched against the desk. The fight was gone, but pride kept her standing. Reba's eyes didn't waver. Her tone was low, but it carried the weight of everything that had come before. Every slight, every struggle, every insult she'd ever swallowed in silence. You mock people chasing dreams, she said, taking one slow step closer. But the truth is, you stopped chasing yours a long time ago. The words hit like a gut punch. Joy froze, her lips trembling as she tried to respond. But nothing came. Her eyes glistened, just slightly, the sheen catching in the stage lights. Whoopi looked away, uncomfortable. Sonny's jaw tightened. Even Alyssa, who had barely spoken all morning, looked like she was holding her breath. The studio was silent, not just quiet, silent. You could hear the cameras humming. You could feel the air hanging thick between them. Reba didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She just stood there, calm, resolute, while Joy stared back at her, the fire in her eyes replaced by something hollow and raw. And in that frozen moment, everyone knew the same thing. The fight was over, and Reba McEntire hadn't just won. She'd exposed the truth that left the whole room shaking. The silence lingered like smoke after an explosion. The fight was over, but its echo filled every corner of the studio. Reba exhaled slowly and turned, adjusting her jacket with the calm of someone who'd already decided this was the last word. Her voice came out clear and steady, every syllable measured. Respect isn't something you demand, Joy, she said. It's something you show. The sentence landed with the weight of truth. Quiet, final, undeniable. Joy sat frozen, her once confident smile gone. Her fingers trembled lightly against the desk, eyes glassy but fixed straight ahead. Around her the set stayed still. No one dared speak, no one dared move. Reba didn't wait for applause. She simply walked off, calm, composed, unstoppable. The click of her heels echoing through the dead air. Joy remained seated, her hands clasped too tightly, her face unreadable. The red studio light blinked above the camera. Still live. And just like that, a legend had taught a masterclass in dignity and left one of television's loudest voices completely, devastatingly speechless. If you believe respect still matters, hit subscribe, drop a comment below, and tell us, whose side were you on when the mic went silent?